Alexa, play Starfinder.
Starfinder.
Welcome to a special edition of No Direction Beyond, the No Direction Network Starfinder News Reviews and Interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello, and I am joined today by three talented individuals who are experts in one way or another about the Starfinder role-playing game, starting with my good friend and co-host, Jefferson J. Thacker. Perram, tell them about yourself.
Hey, I'm Perram. I was the original host of No Direction Beyond for the first 2.5 years of the project, recently on hiatus, and I've got hundreds of hours of Starfinder play, both as a player and as a organized play officer.
Vanessa, what are you bringing to the table?
I'm Vanessa Hoskins. I am one of the current hosts of No Direction Beyond, as well as a network board member, blogger, and Paizo freelancer. I also am a former venture captain for the organized play program for Starfinder.
What have you written for Starfinder?
I just finished writing my very first adventure path, and I've got a few of, thank you very much. And I have a few of their Starfinder Society organized play adventures under my belt as well. And more in the queue.
Owen, have you ever heard of Starfinder?
So I'm Owen K. Stevens. I helped create Starfinder. My name's in the core rulebook. I'm the former Starfinder design lead for Paizo. I am now a full-time freelance game designer, game developer, and I still do a fair amount of freelance writing for Paizo, including having finished my second AP for them recently.
So you're familiar with it?
Yeah.
I've heard of it. Yeah,
Okay.
it's come up. It was mentioned on my paycheck for 3 years.
And you are the current host of No Direction Beyond.
And I am a current host of No Direction. Absolutely true.
For the last year, actually since PaizoCon, there's been a lot of hype that something is coming from Paizo that is going to change the game industry. It was vague, even though it was loaded with hyperbole, and so a lot of people were interested. And every few months, people would say, what was that announcement at PaizoCon? Finally, this last week, Tuesday, December 10th, Amanda Hammond on the Paizo blog posted a blog post called Starfinder to Land on Amazon Alexa. What's happening is that Amazon and Paizo teamed up to create a skill for Alexa so that you could play Starfinder with it. Mm-hmm. Amazon and Paizo provided three of us, so not myself. I will be playing the person who has no idea exactly how this thing works, but they provided three Alexa shows, Echo shows, a touchscreen-enabled Alexa device loaded with the Starfinder skill. So just starting vaguely, Perram, what is this thing?
It's basically, there's a high-end version of this, which is Alexa is your GM for Starfinder, and it runs the game as if you were talking and playing Starfinder at home. But in reality, it's sort of like a really elaborate choose-your-own-adventure running Starfinder rules. And there's been a few attempts at this in the past, but they've all been sort of either jokes, like the Skyrim one, or really low budget. There's an Alexa adventure that basically uses 3.5 rules, but Alexa does all the voices, and it's real simple, sort of like Legend of the Red Dragon. This is something much more ambitious.
All right, ambitious how?
Well, the first thing I noticed was when the screen switched to Starfinder and a soundtrack started, and then professional voiceover instead of robot voices started talking to me.
Raya grins at you.
Can you believe this? Finally, a real gig! This could be our ticket out of here. You and me exploring the universe as Starfinders. Grab your stuff and let's go. What are you bringing anyway?
All right, I was expecting this to be the Alexa voice the entire time.
No.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that the only time so far I've heard the Alexa voice is at one point in character, your communicator goes off and your communicator gives you a message, and that is in fact the Alexa voice. Everything else appears to be professional voice work, which really adds something to the total experience.
What's really fun is there's even an in-game joke about your automated assistant, which is hilarious when she does it.
Now, I've heard it's also an adaptation of Scoundrels in the Spike. This is the adventure from the Starfinder beginner box. Mm-hmm. So just briefly, who has familiarity with this adventure?
I do.
Okay. So Owen, as someone who knows that adventure right off the bat, if I've played this adventure, how familiar will I be with it when Alexa starts playing Starfinder with me?
You will recognize the bones. But this is a very much upscaled version, and in a lot of ways that makes sense. The beginner box is trying to be very, very gentle with what it asks you to do in that solo adventure, because it assumes it's your very first experience and that you're having to do everything yourself. The Alexa version has the same basic plot and a lot of the same elements, but it has been significantly fleshed out, and all the heavy lifting on learning the rules has been moved from you to Alexa. So, for example, the first time you attack something, you don't have to worry about anything other than Alexa tells you to roll a die, which is another thing that surprised me. You can have Alexa roll the dice. You can also literally use your own dice and tell Alexa what you resulted in. So it's expanded the introduction. It's got more dialogue. It's got a few more options. It is a meated in, fleshed out version of that simple skeleton of an adventure.
All right, Vanessa, talk me through how you can take something that's meant for 4 players and make it into a single player adventure. I assume it's single player.
It's single player. Well, the adventure gives you a sidekick. I'm not sure if we each got a different one. Let me back up 1 second. In that at the beginning, it asks you a series of questions similar to that I would ask a new player, such as, if you're trying to deal with this situation, would you go in guns blazing? Would you try to sneak around the back? Or would you try to talk the criminals down? Things like that. And your answers help Alexa choose what character you're going to play, and the character is one of the main iconics. So in my case, I had a lot of answers about talking people down and things, and so I ended up playing Navasi, the envoy. And right at the beginning, Rhea, the Technomancer, comes in as your best buddy and joins you as sort of your NPC sidekick. While you're playing the game, Rhea's actions are completely decided by the system, by Alexa, and you don't get a chance to really interact with her almost at all. This was sort of at first really nice, because I didn't have to control multiple characters. I could just worry about what am I doing. But it became problematic later when I wanted her to do something different and couldn't command her to do something else or interact with her in any way.
Perram, can you go into a little bit of how the rules are implemented? Specifically, where is it transparent and where does it really feel like you are playing and Alexa is your GM?
Okay, so you actually get a little bit of control on how transparent the rules are going to be for you. For instance, I just really didn't want to roll dice or deal with that. And kind of the appeal to this to me was just sort of sit back in my chair and relax and play this. So I told the system to do that, and then it prompted, hey, do you want to make this speed mode? In which case, I'm going to do all the calculations in the background and just tell you what happens. Like,
if you'd like to speed things up, you can turn on fast mode, where I will skip the dice roll details and jump to the outcome. Would you like to turn on fast mode?
Yes, turn on fast mode. Instead of, up until that point, it was rolling all the dice and telling me, you have this bonus, and then you got this result, and it equaled this, and that means a hit. And I'm like, I get that, I understand that, skip all that. Just tell me how many points my laser does. And I was able to ask for more degrees and less degrees of transparency on the rules the entire time. But when I really got immersed in it was when I just let Alexa handle all the rules elements and just was making decisions. There was a point in here where you had the option of either fighting this space goblin in an airlock and what would have probably been a very complicated series of die rolls to resolve an alternate method where you dodged through electricity climbing a scaffolding and then vented the airlock by hacking the computer. And because I had Alexa on complete auto mode, I just was telling Alexa what I wanted to do, and then it narrated the cool stuff that was happening in the background. And while I appreciated that at any point in time I could have seen what all those die rolls and my bonuses were and what my character stats were, just letting that fade into the background made me even more immersed into it. There was also another point where I was fighting a robot, and I knew more about Starfinder than I assumed that the market that this is marketed for. So I immediately told Alexa I was playing the operative, and I knew operatives have trick attack. So when it asked me what I wanted to do with the robot, I said trick attack the robot. And instead of just being obscure, it was like, oh, you know what that means. I'm going to skip the tutorial about that. Go ahead and do it. And I imagine if I didn't, at some point in time, Alexa was going to tell me about what trick attack meant. But because I told it to do that in advance, it assumed a level of knowledge of the game for me and skipped a bunch of explanatory stuff and let me just play the game.
Now, there's a lot of really interesting things you said about that. One of the things that I need more information on is how you narrate your commands. Because, a choose your own adventure, it says, do you want to do this or this? You have very few options. And even something like Mass Effect, where you've got the quadratic options, it's still just the 4 options. Whereas it sounds like you're just telling Alexa the same thing you would tell to a GM.
You and Raya are injured. You take a moment to rest and recharge. You are restored to your maximum of 12 hit points. Raya is restored to her maximum of 10 hit points. Do you search the goblin for valuables?
Search the goblin.
Okay.
So it varies. Sometimes when there is clearly a small set of choices, it will say things like, do you want to go down the corridor or do you want to check the door that is right near you? On the other hand, sometimes you will run into an NPC and it will say, what do you say to them? And you can say whatever you want. And there are clearly keywords it picks up on. There was a moment where someone was injured and I said, I ask if they need help. And the NPC responded, yes, I do need help.
What do you say to the injured worker?
Hey, you look like you could use some help. What happened here?
I presume that if you, just said ba weep grana weep ninny bomb, it would respond, they don't seem to understand what you're saying, and they do X. But I was really shocked that instead of everything just being, do you do A or do you do B, there were points where it just says, what do you say? And you can say whatever you want, and it tries to use its AI to figure out how to respond to that.
I would really like to know if Alexa recognizes ba weep grana weep ninny bomb as the universal greeting and plays it appropriately. That would... I actually probably wouldn't want that to happen because that's a little too human for my AI GM.
Well, I mean, if you tell Alexa to open the Bombay doors, she responds in a very specific way. So there is a lot of those little geek Easter eggs just built into the Alexa in general, totally beyond Starfinder.
Vanessa, what were some of the surprises you found?
I was surprised at the moment where they said, what do you say to this NPC? And that I got to choose my dialogue. I was actually more surprised that I understood what I was trying to go for, because I decided I was going to react with it the way I would a GM, and give it fully colorful answers. And in that instance, it was able to take, I think because it was expecting a free response, it was able to take what I said and figure out what I wanted to do. However, I figured out that on several other moments, it couldn't do that. For example, there was a time where there was a skill that I knew my character wouldn't have, but figured Rhea the Technomancer, my sidekick, did. And it said, do you want Rhea to do this? And I said, yeah, let her give it a shot. And then
Nice.
Alexa said, I don't understand what you're saying. Do you want her to do this? Yes. Oh, okay, now I understand what to do. And that brought me out of it a little bit in those instances. So the AI's vocabulary can be good at times, but is surprisingly finicky.
It probably also indicates that you were getting so casual with Alexa that you weren't using directives, and every now and then you would get caught off guard that just casual chat conversation wasn't working.
Perhaps. I was specifically trying to see how casual I could be with Alexa, and in my experience, the answer is not very, and that was a little bit off-putting to me, taking me out of the experience.
My understanding, and I'm not an expert yet because I'm new with the Alexa, is that Alexa as a system will learn some of your casual responses over time. And my guess is that that would translate to this game as well, that eventually it would be in a point where if you got that kind of casual, yeah, it will have learned that you mean yes by that. But that takes time.
Perram, I'm confused about the touch screen. Was that at all part of the experience?
Nope. No.
Okay. They just sent you a really fancy echo?
Yeah. And I was trying to pay attention to see if there was any displays or graphics displayed, because there's a lot of great art that Starfinder has for a lot of these scenes. And I was kind of expecting some of that art to show up on the screen. And as of this point, nothing but the logo showed up. I don't know if any of you all had any different experiences.
No.
Just the logo.
Rob McCreary, actually, who's the Starfinder creative director, at one point publicly said that for the most part, this is purely an audio experience at the moment. And that is intentional because there are audio-only Alexas. So they don't want to put together a package that you can't use, that you have to have a touchscreen or a visual screen for. But that doesn't mean that might not change over time.
And the only
That is
reason,
exactly why I was confused why they sent us something with a touchscreen.
yeah. And I was also confused when I did that. And then I went online and saw from, gosh, I forget who it was, but an official response from the Starfinder team saying that yes, there would be visual elements to this, and then was surprised that there wasn't. So maybe that's just something planned for the full release. I definitely ran into some bugs. I even crashed at one point in time, but that's stuff that happens with pre-release software, so I wasn't too bad. And it auto saves fairly frequently, too frequently. But so I was able to jump back in.
And you couldn't jump back to like 2 previous save points?
Oh, you don't need, you probably could, but I had a very successful playthrough, so I didn't have any need to jump back. But it did say you could revert back to previous saves explicitly when it was explaining the save system.
How long from instructions to one complete playthrough? Let's go with Vanessa. Did this take you?
I didn't end up completing it. I ran into a scheduling conflict, but I still played for about 45 minutes, and I was definitely interested in continuing the story at the time that I had to stop. This is a bit of a counterpoint to Perram saying that it saved a bit too often. I think it saved decently often, especially if you plan on playing this casually. Like, oh, I've got 30 minutes to kill. I could play a couple segments, and then you could do so. Versus if it was any longer, I think you would run into instances where you wanted to play casually, but either you were unable to finish a segment because you had to go and do something else, or were afraid that you would run out of time and therefore wouldn't play it. So I actually like the degree it goes into. I think it just could be better about how it interrupts your gameplay. Instead of saying, you've hit a save point and we've saved it, do you want to continue? It could just have a sound or a noise or something that indicated, hey, we just auto-saved for you. That way, if you knew, I heard that noise and you know what, I got to go take the dog for a walk, you can just say, okay, Alexa, I'm going to finish for here.
Owen, how did you find the duration?
I didn't carefully time it. I was kind of giggling and delighted the whole time because this is one of the very first times where I've gotten to experience Starfinder sort of from an entirely outside perspective. When I worked at Paizo of the Coast. When I worked at Paizo, this was a thing that was looming, that was coming, but it hadn't started actual crunchy work in any department I was in yet. So I had no idea what this end product was going to be like. So for me, it was sort of getting to come home and see the home cooking instead of having to do it myself. I think it was a couple hours, maybe 2 or 3. The only glitches I ran into was and Alexa says you can pause at any time, and you can, but that is when I ran into a glitch. If I came back after pausing and it wasn't right at a save point, it would frequently open up by trying to explain a piece of equipment to me I didn't have, and then it would get back to the adventure, so that was fine. Like Vanessa, I actually like the frequency of the saves because I could play a little segment and then while waiting for something to load on my computer or while doing the dishes or whatever, it was nice to have this thing I could do while I was engaged in some other task. But if those were relatively short tasks, I could do it, then move on and come back later.
I guess the frequency wasn't the issue with me. It was just that it kept asking me, do I want to continue about every 8 minutes of play or so? If it just said game saved and then moved on, then I would have been happy. And I did time my playthrough because I wanted to know what it was. So I had the quick mode turned on. So a lot of things that would have happened didn't. So this would take longer if you were rolling dice or having everything explained. But with quick mode turned on, it took me 47 minutes to do a playthrough.
That is more or less what I was expecting. I was expecting about an hour. So when Vanessa, you said that 45 minutes and you paused to come back to it, and then Owen, you said 2 or 3 hours. That did surprise me. Now,
I didn't have quick mode turned on, so I was hearing every single die roll an explanation.
And that would dramatically increase the length of time.
Oh, yeah. I think I got through most of it, and I had quick mode turned on because, like Perram, I really enjoyed the sit back and just sort of let the rules disappear, and I can just make decisions and role play.
Now, we do know that there is more to come, or at least there's big plans for more to come. But for now, all we have is Scoundrels in the Spike. How likely are you to revisit this, Perram?
I kind of wanted to play through it as the other 2 characters again. I played through part of it with Quig, but then saw somebody else was playing Quig, so immediately restarted as Isaf, so we would have a broad array of experiences for the cast. And I would like to finish my Quig playthrough and probably do a Navasi playthrough as well. I probably wouldn't play through it many more times past that, because it is like a beginner box adventure. There's a set number of branching paths, and it was pretty quick to see that I hit the majority of them on my first playthrough. But if this were to branch out to what they're hinting at, then I can see this being a lot more engaging. But this, again, was a free sort of intro demo.
Owen, how about you?
I am actually really looking forward to having more content to play through, and I am also probably going to play through this with at least all 3 characters. And to me, interestingly, I was playing with my wife LJ sitting right next to me, and even though she was listening to me play, she's excited to get to play with it later and just make her own decisions and give her own speeches and see how it reacts. If they were talking about doing the Dead Sons adventure path, and the solo adventure from the beginner box isn't designed to tie into Dead Sons, but I can see that it does very naturally. It sort of ends in a point where it makes sense for Dead Sons to pick up. I will totally do that. I'm excited about the possibility. And we started with the beginner box adventure, which, as Perram said, is very basic and simple on purpose. I really want to see what they do with more complex adventures, with more complex options from the get-go, and see how and if they can build those out and expand them.
Vanessa?
I'm looking forward to playing it. I was actually contemplating when I'm going to have time to do so, but I really like Owen's idea of, playing it while you're washing dishes or while you're folding laundry or while you're doing some other menial task, because it doesn't take too much concentration or focus like a full-blown game system does, just enough that you can sort of listen, get an idea of the story, and then respond with your decisions while doing something else that doesn't really take a lot of concentration. And so I'm actually looking forward to playing more of it, including all 3 different characters. And I'm excited about the prospect of a Dead Sons adventure path being available. I don't get a chance to play every single AP that's out there. I miss Dead Sons. And if that's published on this platform, it would give me a chance to experience that story firsthand.
And to sort of go off what Owen and Vanessa was saying, when I was replaying the part I had already played as Quig, I was able to have Terraria running, and I was playing Terraria, mining stuff that I needed for our new house, and just in the middle of combat with zombies, and still was able to enjoy and play the game at the same time. I probably couldn't do that with a story-heavy video game, but I was able to play 2 games simultaneously, which if I was Alexa at this point in time, I would be very mad at my player for doing that to me.
So if you need more game content, you can multitask and play one with your fingers and one by speaking.
That opens up something I used to do, where I would play a wrestling game while I was on the Wii Fit. And this actually sounds like a great thing to do while I'm exercising and finally bust out the Wii Fit again. That is not something I had considered, but now I am.
Yeah, I think one of the fascinating things about this is going to be, how do people decide to play and use this? Because I don't think it's even designed to be a replacement for sitting around with your friends around a gaming table or even using a virtual tabletop, right? This is a different experience, but it's an experience that Starfinder very much has not had previously. And if you're just a fan of the AP, or you're curious about the AP and you want something to do that is low impact, at least at the moment, not a whole lot of risk involved, not a lot of time involved, etc. I think this is going to be a great possibility for that, and I look forward to seeing what do people do that excites them, that entertains them with this system.
I think some of the best parts that really give it the best credit is when it ended, I was genuinely disappointed that there wasn't more content, and the prospect of, because it called Dead Sons Episode 0 during the playthrough, and the prospect of playing through Dead Sons 1, 2, and 3 on this thing got me so excited that when it ended early, I was like fanboy angry. I was like, no, more.
Where's my 13th episode of Firefly? I think I might have got the number of episodes wrong. I feel like a bad geek.
Too soon, Ryan.
It'll always be too soon. Vanessa, what were some of your lasting impressions? Although I know you haven't finished the game, so when do you think you'll be able to get back to it?
I'll probably finish it sometime this weekend. My lasting impressions was that this is a great avenue to get people involved in the Starfinder world, regardless of if they're an RPG player or not. It harkens back very much to those old choose your own adventure books, which I was a huge fan of as a kid. And there's also a nostalgia factor, I think, playing this in, hey, this is what happens. Do you want to go down the corridor, investigate the room? Cool, I guess I'll investigate the room. Do you want to, shoot at this random NPC or talk to them? I'm going to definitely talk to them. And I think that affords a large amount of replayability as well, as you can, as Perram was saying, take different branches, take different paths, see what else is out there. Perram was talking about an airlock and all this stuff, and I'm like, I think I completely missed that. I was just shooting at a goblin. So now I kind of want to replay those. Again, if they can smooth out a couple of the issues, I think it's really going to have some longevity. For me, those issues being the vocabulary that Alexa has while you interact with her, to try and make sure she understands the commands you're giving her, as well as that pseudo clunky save or continue experience that happens every 8 or 10 minutes.
Who is this product for, Perram?
I think that this product is for people who...
People have been...
Did we lose Perram?
I think we lost Owen.
I'm here.
Okay. I think that this product is definitely for people who have not played Starfinder or role-playing games before. Is a great market for this one, especially like the audience of Let's Play fans that may not have a group or something like that. And honestly, if you happen to have an Alexa and are in any way curious about Starfinder role-playing or in general, I definitely recommend trying it out, because this is such a compelling experience that even I have played a crap ton of Starfinder, and I know the other people in this chat have as well, except for maybe you, Ryan. And like
far less than a crap ton.
Yes. Like hundreds and hundreds of hours of Starfinder, and I want to jump into it again when there's more content to be had. So I think really any sci-fi or gaming fan is interested in this.
Owen, final thoughts?
A lot of people have been comparing this to choose your own adventure type things, and I understand that. I have a slightly
I'm glad you said
take.
type things, because I will do choose your own adventure the
type thing, yeah,
favor of saying that is a brand. There is no generic
yeah.
term for it yet.
So when I was first getting into the RPG industry, as a hobbyist purely, in the 80s, I almost dropped out because I did not have a group of friends to play with. And I got really, really lucky in that my mother knew a lot of geeks and asked them what to do. And they said, well, the game Tunnels and Trolls has a lot of solo adventures. So get him a Tunnels and Trolls box set and he can play the solo adventures instead. Those solo adventures actually are what this reminded me of the most. And that is what kept me involved in role-playing games for the first 2 or 3 years until I actually managed to find a group of friends that I could play with. And I learned a lot of basics about how the game works, just the basic concepts like, do I need a light to go into a room? Can I talk to people instead of kill them? What kind of equipment do I want to have? How do I do inventory management? Some of the basics about play I picked up in these solo packets from Flying Buffalo, who still sells them, by the way. And this, to me, really feels like an update of those, because the game rules are there, unlike most of the novel flip-through things where you're selecting your ending. The roles are relevant. You can have different results from the same choice, and that's the one that really, really makes it different. In the novels where you're going through and doing your own narrative, if you make the same choice, you get the same result, full stop. With this, I can make the same choice and get a bad die roll, right? I had two cases, in fact, where I rolled a natural 20. You get a critical hit. Damage 1, doubled to 2. And I had that full experience that you just don't get when you're like, do you go do A or B? Every time I say A, I will get A. So those self-selecting novels never had a lot of replay value for me. I would branch out to make sure I'd done everything once. That's it. With this, I can make a choice, and the die rolls and the skill checks means that making that choice will not always end in exactly the same result. I think that's going to increase replayability. I also think that makes this closer to the kind of result and play experience you get from an actual role-playing game. So it's not the same as sitting around with a group of friends, but it's also not just a walkthrough story game. There is an actual set of game mechanics that's going to affect your outcome, and I think that's going to make it different and exciting.
Vanessa, final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this as sort of a casual game player. Again, I really hope they come out with Dead Sons for it. I think it's going to make that storyline available for a lot more people, including myself. Although I'm the first to say it's going to take me 3 times as long to get through it as anyone else. But I like the idea that when I've got 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30, 45 minutes even, I can just play this game casually for a bit while I'm waiting for the laundry to finish or something. And I like that aspect of it.
Perram, your final thoughts.
I think that this has the opportunity to get a lot more people interested in Starfinder in real role playing, especially as a entry point. And I am extremely surprised at the absolute high-end quality of the product here, when that may not have been necessary to get the same job done. And I think that that is, even if for no other reason, it's worth being played as an experience, as a production. It reminds me a lot of the Big Finish audiobooks versions of the game, more so than just a text adventure, especially since I have played similar efforts in the past on Alexa before. And I really think people need to pay attention to this and give it a shot. I mean, the demo's free, so why not?
Yeah, I think it's a really good thing for me to point to some friends and family member who aren't gamers, who when I say, "Oh, I'm playing this game or I'm writing for this game," they have no idea what I'm talking about. Now at least I can say, "Hey, go play this. It's really fun. It's really easy." And that'll give you a flavor or an idea of the sort of work that I'm doing.
Is this something I can play with my kids? Let's say Scarlett, she's 5.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
It's
think
something,
so.
it's something Scarlett could play without you.
But I want to be there.
True. I just want to say it's that easy to play.
Okay. Oh man, now I don't know if I should tell her how to play it.
And I got to say, one of the most important things for me is that you can go from saying Alexa play Starfinder to making decisions about your character in less than 5 minutes.
Nice.
And that is one of the most important barriers to overcome to get people excited about this hobby. There are a lot of people, I think, who would love to role play if they didn't have to learn a game system or make a character, which are two of the sort of crucial things to be good at it. And I think this is going to help bridge that, so you can see what some of the fun is like and then go, well, if this is this much fun, I can see that maybe putting in the extra effort would be that much more fun with another group. So I think it could be a very important acquisition product.
This also seems like good timing for a Starfinder product, because if people are getting into Starfinder now, you have to tell them, forget what you've learned about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Remember 1st Edition. Here's how Starfinder is different from 1st Edition.
Oh, I want to point out as well that you don't need to have an Echo to play this thing. Like, Paizo was very kind in sending us Echoes, but you can play this thing on any phone. If you just download the Echo app, just about anything capable of being a computer can download a version of Amazon's Alexa app and play the skills that Alexa has, which would include this when it launches.
Excellent. I think we should just, this has been a very positive review, so let's just each take a turn to talk about anything you didn't like about it before we talk about how much or whether you recommend this. So Owen, any issues?
At one point, I said, Alexa, play Starfinder, and it's tried to instead come up with the song Starfighter.
Huh.
Yeah, I had the same exact problem the first time I tried to play it.
So enunciation matters. I will also say that I am very pleased to have an Alexa-enabled device now. Paizo was very, very kind, but there are some privacy issues that I think it is important to touch on, that you may or may not want to have an Alexa device sitting around in your life. As it happens, this thing is plugged in, and when you unplug it, it has no juice and it turns off. So if I am really feeling paranoid, I just unplug it and put it in a drawer. But I think it would be disingenuous to not mention, hey, if you have privacy concerns, look into what people are saying about Alexa devices before you load this up just to play a game on it. I've found a happy medium, but I think people should make an informed decision about that.
It's true.
I agree
If you
with
tell
that.
Alexa that you play like a mechanic, then suddenly Amazon knows you play like a mechanic.
Exactly.
Yeah, I definitely have used the mute button on this thing quite a bit, and unless I'm actively engaging with it, it is muted for that very reason.
Perram, any other complaints, issues?
I couldn't play as Obadiah. That's automatically a point off. But they did say I will be able to play as Obadiah in the premium content when it's released, so there's at least that. But what by that I mean is that you are playing only the iconics, and I would love to see a future version of this where it has like a rudimentary create a character.
So finally, Owen, do you recommend it?
I do. I really do.
Vanessa?
I recommend it.
Oh, that was hesitant. Is there a caveat to who you recommend it to?
I don't know that there's a caveat. I have certain reservations and certain things that I would tell people, such as the enunciation issues and making sure to interface with it the way it wants to be interfaced with. So that's a little bit of a step. So I would probably recommend it with a caveat.
Okay. And Perram, recommend?
Absolutely. I mean, the asking price is $0. It's only going to take an hour of your time. Absolutely play through it. Will I recommend the full release of it? It depends on how much that costs and how much content's available there. But for $0, there's really no reason not to play it.
There were no ads, right?
No.
Not true. When there are no ads during the play experience, sometimes when you end it, it then tells you where you can get Starfinder branded stuff as it's signing off.
It only told me about continuing the adventure myself when I beat the game, and I didn't get any ads up until that point. So
when I would pause and leave, it would say that you could. It would have the voice of the weapons dealer character talking about where I could get Starfinder branded T-shirts and mugs and whatever.
Which seems appropriate.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's when I'm done, right? So I could literally walk out of the room. It never, pardon me. It never made me wait to listen to an ad before I could play another segment or anything. It was just something they tagged in at the very end.
Speaking of tagged in at the end, that seems like a really big question that I probably should have asked earlier on. Sorry about that, because we were so close to wrapping up.
And I didn't know there were ads until Owen told me. I thought the only ad was, hey, it's over, but there's more to come. And I didn't count that as an ad. I counted that as, well, I'm at the end.
Until next time, I'm Ryan Costello.
I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
I'm Vanessa Hoskins.
And I'm Owen K.C. Stevens.
Go beyond with no direction.